So I know we spent quite a bit of time on the Punk archetype because there's a lot to dissect when it comes to that deck, but now we're on the Exorsister deck, and as you can see, this is an Xyz based deck. We got Zeus, we do have a lot of interesting cards that we're allowed to use in this deck because it feels like a lot of their cards are tailored towards monsters who special summon themselves from the graveyard. And what better monster, more relevant monster is there that special summons itself from the graveyard than Destroyer Phoenix Enforcer? We're gonna go over the Exorcisters first. They sort of feel like a weaker Sky Striker. Instead of having broken spell cards, it's like they have Xyz with like multiple effects. So it's sort of like if Sky Strikers and Zodiac met. Elise, you can summon if you control any Exorcister monster, including another copy of herself. So if you draw to Elise, she can extend with herself. You can special summon her from your hand, and then if any card leaves your opponent's graveyard, and all the level 4 Exorcisters have this effect. If any card leaves your opponent's graveyard, any type of effect, you can special summon an Exorcister Xyz on top of your Exorcister monster. So that means if they banish a card, if they special summon a card, return to hand, return to deck. If a card just leaves the graveyard, you can special summon the Exorcister Xyz using your Exorcister monsters as materials. If your opponent does set up the DP, this is a really good deck for that to counter what DP has in store. Elaine can place one Exorcister from hand, bottom of deck, and then draw a card. And then if you control, like, they have little effects that let them gain life points. It's not really relevant, but it's cute, you know. Stella can special summon one from hand, so she's more like the Goblinberg, where Elise is more like the Keyzon, so she can summon herself, can summon others. And then Sophia, if you control another Exorcist monster, you can just draw a card. And then again, they all have the effect to let them overlay if a card leaves your opponent's graveyard, and that is during either player's turn. So it does come up a lot. Next is the Exorcister Amento, and this is like a quick play rank up for Exorcister. You pay 800, you target any Exorcister monster you control, and this is including the Xyz. They're all card Exorcisters, and you get to special summon an Exorcister Xyz monster with a different name from the cards you control by using just that one monster. So you pay 800, target Exorcist monster, and then by using just that one monster, you get to overlay into a new one. Since it's a quick play, a lot of leeway into how it can be used. Its only condition is that you can't activate it during your turn unless your opponent controls a monster special summon from the graveyard. If DP came back from its own effect, you can activate a Mento. You might even want to let DP stay around for a little bit just so you can abuse all your Exorcister effects. So next is Exorcister Pax. Really nice artwork on this one, and it's essentially the Rhoda for the deck. So here's what Pax does, right? It's a Rhoda, and then if you control an Exorcister whose name is listed in the text of the monster that you summoned, you get to special summon the monster that you added to your hand. For some reason, they decided to make it a quick play. I mean, it works really well because, again, all your Exorcisters can rank up themselves with their own effects if your opponent has a card that leaves the graveyard. So if you're playing against Phantom Knights, right, where they banish a lot of their own monsters from the graveyard, a lot of their own cards actually, because it says if any card leaves the graveyard, so if they banish Wing, they banish Fogblade, they banish Torn Skills, they banish, you know, Boots, this deck is going to get free Xyz summons off of that. And that's going to be really significant because a lot of your Exorcister Xyz do have relevant effects if they're summoned that turn. So they have quick effects that activate when they're summoned that turn. It doesn't even have to be on your field. It's like, even if it's in your graveyard, you can do that as well. So it's like, if you draw 2 of these, it's not going to be dead in your hand. You activate one, you set the other. You search the relevant one, that's for your turn, and then you search the other one that has the name of the first one that you searched in its text, and then you get to special summon it and possibly even overlay during your opponent's turn. The last Exorcister main deck card we're going to go over, Carpet Debel. So neither player can target Exorcister monster to control with the effects of monsters. This won't stop DP. If you Xyz summon an Exorcister monster, I really like this effect. You can declare one card name and for the rest of the turn negate the activated effects and the effects on the field of cards with that original name, even if this card leaves the field. If an attack is declared involving Exorcister monster you target spell trap, your opponent controls destroy it. So that second effect I like a lot because they have the quick effect to overlay. You can essentially prohibition a card. You just declare the card name. So if you know that they're going to play it, or if they already have it on the field, you can just literally say any card can be negated. And this card's searchable. It's searchable off of one of the Xyz as well, even though it's a little slow and you will already need some of your Exorsister monsters to actually make this happen, I think it's a pretty good card. I think it's a pretty good card to like play at one, play a little control game with your opponent, right? And last but not least, I do have a little DP engine in here, but that's sort of because I just think this deck loses nothing off of going for DP. I would think because control decks are just so good with DP, I would just say splash DP in here and just see what you can do with it. So we do play 2 Magistus synchros, and that's because all the Exorcisters are spellcasters. So your Zora over here can actually just equip Magistus from your extra deck to it, and then when he gets equipped, he gets a special spellcaster from your hand. So he can either synchro or he can overlay for you real easily. Because they're all level 4s, you can go into your level 8 Zora, and Zora says you can equip another Magistus from your extra deck to this card, and then your opponent cannot activate the effects of monsters with the same card type as his equip cards. If you choose something like Fusion, they can't use DP's effect. If you choose something like Synchro, they can't go into Borlo. Now they can't use Chaos Ruler, can't use the Chijao, they can't use the Baxia. You can essentially shut down certain decks with this card if you set it up properly. And its non-tuner requirements is actually pretty lenient. You know, it doesn't have to be a spellcaster, so you can use one of your 4 Charmer Beasts, the Gigabyte, the Ron Ryu, Inari Fire, and the Nefarious Archfiend Eater. And the reason why these are in the deck is because these are just level 4 extenders. All your rank 4s exceeds are generic, so you don't need like spellcaster or a certain monster to go into them. It doesn't matter what monsters you use, their effects will always be the same. So you can use pretty much any extenders, and because pretty much your entire deck is spellcasters other than these extenders, you can just play these guys at whatever number you want, and you can only control one of them at a time. So you want to play different names. I saw Yassine playing 2 of each. I haven't tested it yet. I can understand why. Maybe if you're really desperate to make those rank 4s first turn, but I feel like since this is a control deck, having all those extenders won't do you too good. Maybe play extras of just a Gigabyte and like another one, because Gigabyte's a water, so Dweller will actually get an attack boost as long as you have Gigabyte as material. Yeah, we got the double Zeus. So now we're going to go into our Exorsister's Xyz, which is a Mechalise, right? And she can't be destroyed by battle with a monster that was special summoned from the graveyard, right? And so they all have an effect that only can be able to be applied the turn that they're summoned or properly exceed summoned. And so if this card was exceed something using the Exorsister monster's material, you target one card your opponent controls or in their graveyard and banish it. So that's a quick effect in case you need to get rid of something. And then her ignition effect, which is like no matter what you overlay on top of her or what you use to overlay into her, she can detach one, add a Exorcist spell trap from deck to hand. So she can add your rank magic essentially, she can add your Rhoda, or she can add your Prohibition. You know, you can make her during your opponent's turn and then, you know, banish something, and then during your turn you can again search the Amento. Although you wouldn't be able to make another one on top of her, you would be able to search another, or you would be able to go into another Exorcister. And our next one is the Caspitel, and she can't be destroyed by battle with monster special from your graveyard. So if she is Xyz summoned that turn by using Exorcister monsters, you can activate this effect. For the rest of the turn, neither player can special monsters from the graveyard. Right? Awesome. So if you do get your Amento and your opponent has DP in the grave, you set your Amento draw phase, you can activate this before it becomes standby, and then now you can make your Capistel, and now their DP is stuck in the graveyard. It can no longer come back. Now, because the effect needs to activate, it's a continuous like effect. Amento wouldn't be good against something like a Baron, because if you tried to chain it to Baron, then Baron can just resolve, because Capistel still needs to activate in a new chain, so Baron would have already resolved by the time Capistel gets a chance to activate. So unfortunately it won't stop Baron, but it is still a pretty good card. And then she can detach one and add any Exorcister monster from your deck to your hand. So now it's like you have 2 different Xyz monsters, one that searches your spells and traps, another one that searches your monsters, and essentially these would really be the only 2 that you need, but there are 2 more that exist, and I think you might as well just play them. All 4 of these Xyz are actually fairly decent. Here we got your Yugioh, and she can't be destroyed by the activated effects of monster special from the graveyard, and this is like strictly DP based. Unfortunately, her attack and defense stats aren't too good. The turn that she's Xyz summoned using an Exorcister monster, you can activate this effect. Whereas the turn neither player can activate card effects in the graveyard. If DP popped itself, that's it. your graveyard effect cannot activate. I'm sorry, bro. And so her ignition effect is that you can detach one, target a monster your opponent controls, return it to the hand. They can't activate their effect. she wouldn't be able to be destroyed by the DPE, and then she can shuffle the DPE back into the extra deck. Dude, that's insane. And last but not least, we have your Exorsister Jiren. She does have the biggest booty with 2800 defense, and she also cannot be destroyed by the activated effects of monster special summon from the graveyard, right? The turn that she succeeds summoning using an Exorsister monster, she can target an effect monster your opponent controls, negate its effects. Although I'm only playing one, you can definitely play multiples. I definitely am not against that. Her ignition effect is probably the worst because she detaches one, makes all your Xyz monsters, not even all monsters you control, and she's only at 1400, so she's only gonna go up to like 22. I mean, I guess it's cute. She's good if you control another Exorsister already, but otherwise I probably wouldn't bother with her. So next are your Magistus monsters, and so the only reason why you really care about these is because you can again attach them with your Zora pretty much for free. And she does have an effect, but her summon condition isn't really too easy in this deck, and the monster that she would summon, the Magistus monster, you probably already used this effect anyway to get her on board, so there's probably no reason to actually go into her. Because your Zora could be able to equip Xyz monsters from your action deck and possibly sub something like, like Zodiac or Bird up, then, playing the Xyz monster Magistus is still worth it. We play 2 of the Link 1 Magistus, and that's because she's the best one. When she's equipped, she can add another Magistus from deck to hand. So essentially Zora, normal summon, activate his effect, equip Artemis. His effect to special summon is a trigger effect, so as soon as you equip Artemis you have to special summon, which is a little unfortunate because if it wasn't, then Artemis could search you another Magistus before you special summoned, and maybe playing the other Magistus might have been worth it, but now it's like hopefully you already have another spellcaster in hand, and then Magistus can search you another Zora from deck to hand. Too easy, right? I got a few cards in the extra deck here, or in the side deck here, like Ecclesia, level 4 spellcaster. She can special summon herself. It's only if she activates her search effect where you can't special summon from the extra deck. So if you just want an extender that gives you options as to, okay, do I go for the fleur-de-lis or do I use her for an overlay, I think Ecclesia could be a good pick for this deck. If you can get him out without using your normal summon, I think he could be a really good option because he can equip a Magistus and then pop a face-up spell and then draw 1 card. So I mean, it's not too relevant, but again, it's cool. Aiden is another Dogmatica card. He's here for the same reason that Ecclesia is here, except he doesn't give you the option to like search something, but he also doesn't lock you from your extra deck as well. So if you want someone who you can special summon who won't lock you from your extra deck, Dogmatica Aiden might be the way to go, but you still can't Nadir Servant to go into him because that would also lock your extra deck. Doesn't make it easier, just makes it simpler, I guess. And then here's your Fusion Magistus in case you're facing Invoked or just any deck that's using DP. There you go. I mean, shit, you can just equip your Link monster, and then at that point, they wouldn't be able to make Verte, but they might hard draw the Fusion Destiny, and you're probably going to be screwed. So yeah, overall, the Exorsister archetype, it's very cool, like in concept, and I don't know how much it'll clash up against the meta because I don't know how much the meta, other than like maybe PK, is actually going to be doing stuff that this deck can like work with.